We're talking about the hobby press and taking viewer comments and questions on Ron's Trains and Things right now. Hi, I'm Ron of Ron's Trains and Things, and if you'd like to see more model railroad tips, tools, and techniques, then be sure and subscribe down below and click that little bell icon so you can catch future videos. I am very excited tonight to be coming to you on my first scheduled live stream, something that we've been talking about and wanting to do for about a year, and excited to finally be here and doing it for the first time this evening. Tonight, we're going to start off with a little conversation about the hobby press, hobby magazines. I hear a lot of conversation about what's good and what's bad, what's right and what's wrong, and I want to share with you some thoughts that I have, and I want to hear your comments about that and any other model railroad related topic that you'd like to discuss this evening. Before we get to that, I'd like to make a comment on something that's in the news. Most of you probably have heard about the incident in Denver with the Frontier Days train on Saturday. For those of you who aren't familiar, the Frontier Days train is a Union Pacific excursion that is scheduled each year between Denver and Cheyenne during the Cheyenne Frontier Days, carries passengers back and forth between those two cities for the Cheyenne Rodeo. On Saturday evening, as the train was returning passengers back to Denver, just a few miles north of Denver proper, a pedestrian, rail fan, a lady was too close to the tracks trying to take pictures of the train as it came, and she was hit and killed. And of course, I want to express my sympathy for the family of the lady who was killed, as well as my sympathy and concern for the crew who had to deal with that situation. And I know many passengers were there and were traumatized by just being a part of that incident as well. Having said that, I think this is a really poignant reminder for those of us who do like to rail fan, who like to take photographs and videos of trains, and especially special excursions like when 844 comes through, as was the case then. Not too many opportunities to get video of a steam engine. We can get sometimes overly excited and do things that we know are not safe to do. So I just want to encourage you all to be sure and be safe when you're out there near the railroad tracks. Keep a safe distance away. Make sure you keep your children back. Some incidents like that can really ruin a lot of great opportunities for all of us to view locomotives like 844 and other equipment when it's in use. And so just wanted to make a comment on that, and also to remind you of that important service reminder. I'm really curious, and I hope you'll share with me in the chat. I'm interested to know, as we talk a little bit about the hobby press and hobby magazines, I'm interested to know what you read. I was a subscriber to Model Railroader magazine myself for over 20 years. I currently read Railroad Model Craftsman fairly regularly, and I've read it at different times through the course of the years, and several others. There are some great online magazines now that are out there, and I read Model Railroad Hobbyist pretty regularly now. I'm interested to know what you read, and as you are sharing those comments, I've been struck, especially over the last year or so, although it's been true for much longer than that, by a lot of comments that I hear about the hobby press, about hobby magazines, both paper magazines as well as online magazines. I hear a lot of people really maligning the hobby press as being out of touch, as though the articles that they read and that are being written just somehow aren't hitting them, and so what comes about is a lot of times a lot of criticism of the magazine itself. And I'm one that happens to be somewhat sympathetic towards the magazines themselves, and I think a lot of times what happens is not so much that there's a huge problem with a particular publication, as there is a mismatch between the goals of that publication and those reading it. I hear a lot of people complaining about Model Railroader magazine, for example. And again, I subscribed to Model Railroader for over 20 years, and I still enjoy reading it from time to time. But over the years, my needs and desires for a model railroad publication have changed. Model Railroader magazine, just as one in particular, is a magazine that strives to be a general magazine for the general hobby. And if you think about the nature of that, the people who are interested in model railroading, the vast majority of them are beginners or intermediate in their modelers. And there are literally thousands of people who are interested in the hobby, but who have never and may never build a layout or actually do any model building themselves. But they enjoy reading about it. They enjoy the articles and the pictures that they get in a magazine like Model Railroader. And that really is the audience that Model Railroader is seeking to get their magazine in front of. Again, they are a for-profit company, a for-profit magazine, and so they're trying to do what they can to make money. I still enjoy reading Model Railroader magazine because I like reading the articles about layouts, and they tend to have layouts that are very far along in completion with regard to scenery, and those are enjoyable to look at. Now, I also enjoy reading sometimes articles about layouts that are in progress that may not have all that beautiful scenery in place. And you don't see that as much in Model Railroader as you do in some other magazines. But I don't personally consider that a problem with the magazine as much as I consider it the task of perhaps a different publication. And so I need to read something else in order to see that. Now, one of the big movements in the hobby press today, of course, is towards digital media. Paper, print magazines, print newspapers are very quickly kind of going by the wayside. It's uncertain, what the future of those will be. Many of these same magazines are producing their magazine online. You can get Model Railroader in strictly a digital copy. And then there are other magazines that are strictly digital, like Model Railroad Hobbyist that Joe Fugate started several years ago. I think we're going to see more and more publications like Model Railroad Hobbyist, where the publication is available online. In the case of Model Railroad Hobbyist, the publication is free. They make their money through the sales of ads that are placed in the publication. But to the reader, you can receive and get that content for free. And then, of course, there's bonus content that you can pay for on their website or adjoined websites as well. I actually happen to be involved in a digital magazine, and I don't know if I've talked a lot about that because I haven't been doing it for very long. But the Modeler's Journal is a brand new modeling magazine, comes out once a quarter. The second issue just came out a few weeks ago, and I write a column for that magazine each quarter, and it's completely free. It's a non-ad. Everything that is done for that magazine is done on a volunteer basis, including the editorial work. And that is available strictly and completely for free. And I think we're going to see more and more hobbyists who are interested in that kind of free content and are going to be perhaps moving away from even the paid digital content because there's so much great content out there at no cost. And that, of course, is part of the beauty of what we do here on YouTube. Again, there is a wealth of information on almost any topic with regard to model railroading somewhere in a video on YouTube that you can usually find with just a pretty quick search. And so that's a great resource. I wish I had a resource like that 20 odd years ago when I started in the hobby. But at that time, the internet was brand new, and this kind of information on the internet just didn't exist, was almost unheard of. So I'm scrolling back here a little bit because I want to see if the answers I got to my question. What is it that you read with regard to the Model Railroad hobby publications? Here, Sparky 107 says, I still get Model Railroader magazine. That's good. There are a lot of people, obviously, a lot of people still reading it. Model Railroader still has the greatest circulation of any print magazine out there and available. Here's D. Wendell Adig. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Says compare an issue of Model Railroader from 10 years ago to an issue from today, and the page count's about half, and the newsstand price is twice. And you're exactly right, Wendell. That's very true. And a lot of that again comes down to the business of printing a print magazine. It's more expensive to print a magazine these days, and when the subscriber count is far down, the Model Railroader magazine's subscriber rate is down now from its height, which was about 15 years ago. It's down by almost half from what it was at one time. So that's a struggle that they have to take into consideration because they are a for-profit magazine. But you're very much right. I mean, it's a real choice, a real decision to continue a Model Railroader subscription because it is more expensive and there are less pages there. So you've got to make sure that it is the content that you're really looking for. Ron Bryce says, I used to buy Model Railroad magazine, but nowadays I find more online through fellow YouTubers like us all here. And there's a lot of truth in there, Ron. And I'm going to be honest with you. I've always taken a couple of Model Railroad magazines and I've usually read them. I've got a fly here that's just driving me nuts. I'm sorry. I usually read a couple of them from cover to cover. When I started making videos for YouTube, at the same time, I started watching a lot more videos on YouTube, and I found myself reading a lot less of paper publications in the hobby. I still read some online magazines, but I find that I don't read the paper ones nearly as much as I did. Another thing that's important to me, and I don't know how this affects you all, but the quality of a publication is important to me, whether it's digital or whether it's on paper. One of the things I always liked about Model Railroader is the fact that it is a high quality, high production value magazine. When you get it, it's going to be professionally put together. It looks good. Hot Rod Rodney, yes, I got a special guest of this fly. I don't know where he came from. He literally appeared the minute I started streaming. Years ago, and I won't name the magazine, but there was a magazine that started when I was fairly new in the hobby, and it was more of a niche model railroading magazine. But I thought, I was kind of interested in that niche, and so I started subscribing to it fairly early on. And hello, Crypto Cruising, good to have you. Good to see you tonight. But it wasn't well written. The grammar wasn't good. Things were misspelled. And this was a magazine that I was paying for. And I thought, well, it's brand new and these guys are doing it for the first time. So I'll give them a chance. And so I've subscribed for a couple years. And after 2 years, it just didn't get better. And while some of their content was good, I just couldn't bring myself to read it. So I eventually canceled my subscription and didn't take that magazine any longer. Hello, Flash in your pan. Good to see you tonight. We've got some guests this evening that are not necessarily Model Railroad guests, but some folks that I know through Nick Nimmin and through his Discord community. For trying to say that. So it's good to see you guys in here tonight. I'm glad that you joined me. So let's see. Get a few more here as people were talking about what they read. Here's Sparky. I think still talking about Model Railroader. He says, I like the magazine. I can open it up and try to copy what others have done. Oh yeah, and the ads. And sometimes the ads are worthwhile. Sometimes the ads are the most worthwhile thing in the magazine. Sometimes. Reading on through here. Nathan DeLay says, let's see, if that's true, no longer making magazines, I guess I'll become become valuable someday. Oh, you're valuable, Nathan. We're glad that you're here. Happy I was able to catch the live. Thanks, Matt Ingalls. Glad that you were able to make it in this evening. So that's what I wanted to talk about and discuss this evening. But I'm curious to know what's on your mind. Share with us your comments and your questions now, and I'll be glad to take those as they come in. As you do, I want to make a couple of shout outs this evening about a couple of channels that if you're not already aware of them, if you're not already subscribed to them, I hope that you will. One of them is Andy Dorsch, and the other one is Reed over at Spokane Northern. Both of these guys were involved in the Down and Dirty Weathering contest last winter, and I got to know them a little bit through that. And since then, both of them have been doing a little bit more on their channels, their model railroad channels. Reed just finished up a contest that he had celebrating his 100th subscriber. So congratulations on that, Reed. And Andy, I know, has been making some videos and just this weekend published a new channel trailer and is really working to build up his channel as well. So if you're not familiar with those guys, if you haven't seen their channels, if you haven't subscribed to them, there's actually a link to their channels in the description down below. And I hope when this live stream is over, you'll go check them out and subscribe to those guys. They will appreciate that. Hey, Kevin Knight, he made it. Should I tell your secret, Kevin? Kevin is a school teacher in Australia, and I think he's actually watching this during class today. I'm curious, Kevin, is your class watching this with you? I really want to know. All right, Jeff and EJ and E need more on weathering. I've been thinking about doing some more weathering videos, Jeff. So I'll take that into consideration because that's something that I've been looking at. I'm actually working on another scenery video right now. That's going to be my next one out. I also have a follow up video from last week where I'm going to be doing some track feeders and installing and soldering those. And so that's going to be coming up. But I've been thinking it was about time to get back to doing some more weathering. So that may be not too far down the road. Hello, Jack. Good to see you tonight. Glad that you're here. Crypto Cruising is asking, have you ever fitted a small camera into one of your trains and recorded it on the track while going around? I haven't done that just because I don't have a camera at this time small enough. I know they make now some pretty good quality cameras that are small. I'm running in scale, so it takes a really, really tiny camera to successfully do that on in scale. But that is definitely something that I've hoped to do out there in the future when I get that camera for that. Oh, thank you, Eric. I do want to say thank you to my moderators this evening, Eric at IMRRO.com and Stephen at Midwest Model Railroad. Appreciate those guys for helping me out. They're keeping you guys straight tonight. I told them I didn't expect any problems because I've got the greatest viewers on the internet. So I appreciate that. But thank you, Eric, for putting those links in there for me. Appreciate that. Have I ever heard of the Dallas, Garland, and Northeastern Short Line? That sounds familiar, and I should have heard of that because I lived in the Dallas area for about 6 years, although that has been a while ago. But Jonathan Edwards, I'm not placing it in exactly. I am familiar with the Tarantula there in Fort Worth. That is part of the Fort Worth and Western system, which is a short line. Dallas, Garland, and Northeastern. So I assume that runs north out of Dallas to Garland. Oh, okay, Sparky. We will see you in a little bit. He says he's going to have to come back a little bit later. Be sure and come back. LS3 Jack is asking, Ron, why did you choose in scale? Well, I'll tell you, when I first started in model railroading, I assumed that I would model an HO because that's what almost everybody else did. And so I started off collecting, HO equipment and planning an HO layout. But I was in my mid 20s. I was young. And at that time with my job, I moved around. It seemed like about every 2 or 3 years I was moving. And so it just wasn't really feasible for me to build a layout in HO that was large enough to do kind of what I wanted to do. So I decided after a couple of years of frustration there that I would get some in-scale stuff and build a small portable in-scale layout just to practice doing some structure building and doing some scenery to kind of build my skills for when the time came that I had the opportunity to build an HO scale layout. My intention was not to go to in-scale permanently, but was just to use it as a way of kind of playing around and practicing my skills. As I got into in-scale, and that was about the time when really DCC was really becoming both affordable and reliable in scale, and the improvement that we really see today in the detail of in-scale rolling stock and locomotives was really just beginning then. And as I began to see what all was happening in scale and that it was growing, I just fell in love with the scale. And so when I did get the opportunity to build a larger, more permanent layout, I ended up building an in-scale one. And in fact, I took all my HO stuff and sold it on eBay and invested it in in-scale locomotives and rolling stock. So that's kind of my story. That's how I got into in-scale. It was purely by accident, but I love it. And someday I may do something different. I do have aspirations someday to build an HO narrow gauge layout set in the 19th century, in the, probably the, 1870s. But until then, I'm certain that I will stick with in scale. Deadly utters. No matter what scale, my room can't handle a full loop, so I just went with HO switching. And there's a lot of fun to be had with a switching layout. I'm actually in the process right now of building a little switching layout that's completely separate from my main layout that you see behind me. It's also going to be in scale, but I'm actually building a switching layout of the town that I live in, set back in the early 1950s, before the railroad left, this town. There hasn't been any railroad here since 1957. So good choice with the switching layout. Yes, Eric, I agree. That is a good choice. Jack, I need to know, can anyone weather a Teiko rail car and make it look as realistic as possible? That is a good question, Jack. Be interesting to see what answers you get here, because a Teiko, to make it look realistic, that's going to be a pretty good job. I would say to really make it look realistic, you may need to do some upgrading, before you even do the weathering, just to kind of work on its detail a little bit. But let's see if there's anybody here in the chat that would be interested in taking up that challenge to weather a Teiko car and make it look realistic. Kevin Knight saying ON30 British as options, but once an N-scaler, always an N-scaler. Yeah, I think there's a lot of truth in that, Kevin. It kind of, N-scale kind of gets in your blood. Sparky, I'm going to help you out, Sparky. Sparky 107 said, "Oh man, I want to tell people where they can win a DCC system." Lots of questions about DCC. Y'all need to check out the Sparky 107's live stream on Wednesday evenings. He's been going for I don't know, a few months now on Wednesday evenings every week, and when he hits 100 in his live stream, he's going to give away an NCE basic DCC system. So y'all jump in on Sparky's live stream this week, get him to 100 and see if we can't get him to give that thing away. Jeff at EJ&E says, I'll take off my glasses, then it looks realistic. Yeah, that's pretty good. I have to do the same thing, or just look down. If I don't look at it through my bifocals, then it doesn't look realistic. Do. Hi, Peter. I'm doing good. How are you doing this evening? Tom Carr, I'm using DCC++. I've been playing with DCC++, and I've been having a little trouble getting mine to function. I think I've got problems with the motor shield that I have. And hey, I just got a super chat from Eric at IMRROCom. Thank you, man. Always appreciated. Always appreciated. Thank you very much. What was that? Oh, DCC++. I've been playing with that. Actually, I want to use a DCC++ system on the switching layout that I was just talking about. And so I've been playing a little bit with that, and I haven't quite gotten mine to work yet, but need just a little more work on it. I'll tell you, that's something, if y'all that really follow my channel know, I did a couple of videos a while back playing with some Arduino stuff. And that is not my area of expertise by any means, but it is an area of fascination for me. And I'm planning to do a lot more with Arduino going forward. I did that little bonfire, just a test bonfire with the Arduino Nano in that video that I made a couple of months ago. I'm planning on putting a bonfire exactly like that on my layout. Sparky 107, a super chat for 20. Thank you very much. Appreciate you. You all are fantastic. Bruce Giroux, a super chat for $5. Thank you, Bruce. Always appreciated. You guys are awesome. But the Arduino thing, I'm planning. I lit the hotel when I built it last fall with the Just Plug system. ContainerMan68, the super chat for 5. He needs a bell. I thought about that after I got here. I needed a super chat bell or a horn like that thing that Sparky's got. That's awesome. I'm going to try to come up with that before next month. So we'll have that in place. But thank you, Roy. Appreciate that much. But anyway, Arduino, I lit the whole hotel with the Just Plug system. I plan to go back and redo the lighting, not only in the hotel, but in all of Wichita Falls as I add to that, and do it with Arduinos and have those to where they come on and off at random times, both in the hotel. Sorry about that. Both in the hotel and around town there in Wichita Falls. So that's something I'm going to be playing with. John Dilly, super chat for $5. Thank you very much, John. Appreciate you. Donation for a bell. I will take that and invest in a bell before next month. That'll be a worthy investment. My wife is a school teacher. I actually think I could probably just steal a bell from her, but we will definitely make sure we have one here by next month. By the way, I'm going to go ahead and make this announcement. I'll make it again later, but I've said I'm planning to do this live stream, at least right now, on monthly. I'm going to do it on the 4th Monday of the month. So the next one is going to be on August 27th. And this time I think is working about as well as any for me, and looks like I've had a really good response tonight. I've had over 90 in the stream for most of the time this evening, so that's awesome. So I think we'll stick with that same time for now of 8 o'clock Central on August 27th. Sparky 107. I just can't understand the DCC++ system, but I think because I'm using NCE. Well, the beauty of DCC++ is the fact that it's a full-blown DCC system, but it costs virtually nothing, as opposed to the hundreds of dollars you can invest in a full-blown DCC system. I have thought about changing DCC systems for my layout behind me, but the problem is, I've got a full wireless system the way I am now, and to buy an established system and get it to that wireless status and have the number of throttles that I have would be hundreds of dollars, and it's just hard for me to cough that money up. With a DCC I can build the system with an Arduino and a motor shield for about $30, and I can run the layout from an app on my phone. And if other users come, they can bring their phones, download the app, and they can run trains as well. Mike Vance, thank you for that super chat of $5. I appreciate that. If I had a bell, I'd just be ringing it all the time right now. So you guys are much appreciated. Let's see. There was another comment here that I wanted to. Jack is asking if I have full digital blocking system or if I'll be adding it, and if there's a video series for it. I do not have a digital blocking system at the moment. I'm planning on doing some upgrading down the road to signaling. Right now, I'm running DCC for my locomotives, but everything else is pretty much analog. Even my switches are all hand thrown right now, so I don't have a lot of that other technology on the layout at the moment. But my intention is to come back to add switch motors on the main line that are remotely controlled, to add detection system, to add signaling. I'm planning on coming back and doing some of that technical work down the road, and as I do, you will see it on video. Let's see here. Bill Vassar going to log off now. Thank you, Bill. And did I mention Mike Vance and his super chat a while ago? I saw it, and I don't know if I said anything, but thank you, Mike. Appreciate that. Appreciate that super chat. Bill, you have a good evening. Thanks for joining us tonight. Brett Tidler, just getting back into the hobby. My DCC NCE system should arrive tomorrow. What is DCC++? Brett, DCC++ is a DCC system that's built off of an Arduino platform. And if you're not familiar with an Arduino, I could go in the other room and get one. I don't have one on hand. But an Arduino is a small computer board that runs a fairly simple logic or a simple language, and they're easily programmable through a programming environment that you can download. And the beauty of the Arduino is it is all open source, both hardware and software. So you can get an Arduino board. You can buy an Arduino. You can buy the name brand board for about $10 or $12. You can buy a knockoff brand for $5 or $6. To do the DCC++ system, you need to have the Arduino, and you also need to have a second board, which is called a motor shield, that goes on top. And combined, the Arduino and the motor shield, it costs you somewhere between $30 and $40. And when you have that, you have all the hardware you need to run a DCC system, and it runs off of JMRI and Decoder Pro. Then you can download the software or the sketch for DCC++. You can download it for free, open source software right off the internet. You can load it onto that little system that you've just built with those two boards. And then you can use that with JMRI and run an entire layout. And you have invested, rather than hundreds of dollars, you've invested about $40 or $50 in the system. Then you can run the system off of apps that you can download on your phone that will run the system, the DCC++ system, wirelessly. So it's a really cool system that is out there, and not a lot of people, I don't think, have known about it, but there's been a lot more written about it in the last year or so. And it's pretty cool. It's pretty promising. And it definitely is a major cost saving step over a traditional DCC system. Now, there are still advantages to your traditional DCC systems for sure. Most of your system, the NCE system, for example, today, or I'm running MRC Prodigy Advanced Squared with a wireless upgrade. Those are very intuitive. They help you do a lot of the programming, right there on the system, the basic programming. With a DCC++, you're going to run with JMRI and Decoder Pro on a laptop or on your computer, and that also is intuitive in its own way. It's a different type of programming though. So it's an exciting thing. If you search for it on YouTube, you'll find an incredible number of videos out there about DCC++. John Dillard, Tom's Trains and Things, has a series on it. Yeah, I think Tom just had a video that came out specifically about DCC++. I saw the notification. I haven't actually watched that video yet, but I believe he just did one video specifically on DCC++ recently. He's been doing a lot of videos on Arduino in general over the course of the last, 4 or 5 months. I appreciate Tom, especially in that area, because he has a real background in electronics and in some of that kind of technology. And as much as I enjoy a lot of that, it's not my area of expertise. So I depend upon the help of others really to help me to learn those things. And Tom's pretty good in that area. Jack, Ron, you said I can use my cell phone as a throttle, right? Yes, with DCC++, you can use your cell phone as a throttle. That is correct. You use the JMRI, the app. What's it called? I've got it on here. I'm not going to take time to search for it, but somebody help me. What's the app called? It's got a different name for the iPhone than it does for the. I can't say anything tonight. Than it does for the Android. Engine Driver, that's it. Thank you, DIY and Digital Railroad. Engine Driver is the name of the app for Android. I think, doesn't it have a different name for the iPhone? I'm not sure. And I've got some DC guys on here, and that's cool. I don't have a problem with somebody who wants to run DC. In fact, personally, I think somebody just getting into the hobby ought to build one DC layout before they ever build a DC, even if it's a small one. That's just good experience, especially if you don't have a lot of background in electricity or electronics. Building a DC layout and one that is set up for in electrical blocks so that you can run more than one locomotive is a real learning experience. And it's good to have that experience and that knowledge, even if you're wiring a DCC layout. The wiring on a DCC layout is a lot simpler than a DC layout. So if you can wire a DC, wiring a DCC layout is simple as far as the wiring is concerned. So yeah, I'm all, but my first layout was a DC layout, and I had a lot of fun building it, wiring it, and running it. Even though it was small, it was a lot of fun. Now, being the gadget guy that I am, and especially technology being where it is now, I do love DCC, and I especially love DCC with sound. The sound in scale has come so far just in the last 5 or 6 years that it is almost mind-blowing. The kinds of quality speakers that you can fit into an in-scale locomotive and the quality of sound files that you can run through them. And TCS is really, they are really raising the bar in that area of sound, especially in scale, to a level that I never thought possible. I told somebody here all back, I recently got my first scale trains locomotive with with that was sound equipped, and I put it on the layout and listened to it, and made me want to take a hammer to my other locomotives because it just sounded so good. It makes everything else kind of sound bad, but it is pretty incredible. DC wiring made DCC wiring so much easier to grasp. That is very true. That's from Aaron Milhone. That is very true. Yes, if you can wire DC, wiring DCC is simple. I'm sorry. I'm trying to keep up with some of the chat here as I go, and it's hard for me to do, but trying to keep up as much as I can. Jeff Allen, I'm still in DC. All my engines were bought in the 90s, except for my Intermountain engines. I use Kato sound box, signals, and crossing gates. Excellent for beginners like me. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And, ultimately, everybody has their own sets of goals in the hobby. Everybody has their things that are enjoyable or that are fun to them. And, I can have as much fun running trains on a DC layout as I can on a DCC layout. There are different things that I enjoy about both of them. And so, if you're happy with the DC and you're having fun with it, that's ultimately what's really important. So more power to you. More power to you. Thanks for your comment, Jeff. Craig Drinkow, he says, I'd like to add block protection. Do you mean block protection or block detection? Because those are two different things. Block protection, I assume you're meaning about protecting against short circuits so that the short circuit on one part of the layout doesn't shut down the entire layout because it throws the breaker on the system, as opposed to block detection, which is some sort of system to detect when trains are in a certain block for the sake of signaling or other purposes. Hey, Stephen, Midwest Model Railroad, thank you so much for that super chat. Appreciate that. Would like to say Model Rail MR does better than any other publication or worse than anyone else. What would you say Model Railroader does better than any other publication or worse than anyone else? Okay. The thing I think Model Railroader does the best is the fact that it is just such a well edited and well put together magazine. I mean, the production quality is fantastic. The photographs are always fantastic. So, I like the fact that it's quality, and quality is just one of those things that means a lot to me. I also like the fact that right now, the Model Railroader is again, you can't be all things to all people. But understanding that their market is primarily beginning and intermediate modelers, they are really opening a lot of doors to them through the combination of their magazine, through MRVP, their video service, which is a fantastic service. It's subscription, but it's a great service. And all of it, they just strive for a high degree of quality. I also like reading their articles of layout tours, because they always, again, I know that they strive to cover layouts that have a lot of, beautiful scenery in place, but I enjoy looking at that, and I get a lot of great ideas, from those photographs and from the things that I read. And so I really enjoy the way they do their layout tours. As far as worse, I don't know that I would say worse than anyone else. At this stage, for me as a modeler, I don't find myself challenged in model building by the articles that I read in Model Railroader. I don't read things in Model Railroader that I think, if I did that project, it would really stretch me. Whereas there are some other, Railroad Model Craftsman is a magazine that when I was new in the hobby, I would read it once in a while, but it was so far above where I was that it wasn't really valuable to me. Now I read those articles, and some of them are where I am, and some of them really stretch me to say, I could try that. That's beyond where I am as a modeler now, but it's somewhere that I think I could easily get. And so it kind of stretches me that way. I don't think Model Railroader stretches me where I am in my level of model railroading right now. That was a really long answer to a fairly simple question, but thank you again, Stephen. Appreciate that. Okay, let's see. Midwest Modeler Stephen, do you feel that they are doing a good job reaching out to the younger age group or just new modelers of an older age? That's hard for me to answer, because I'm not sure I know the answer to it. I think they're striving to reach a younger crowd. If you look at their video stuff, they've got some younger people that are on staff that are writing for them, and so you're seeing more of that, in their videos. I think it's going to be a tough sell for any print magazine to reach a younger crowd as a print magazine. I think that to reach that younger crowd, you're going to have to reach them with technology. You're going to have to reach them with video. You're going to have to reach them with the digital stuff. You're going to have to reach them with the shorter, pithy things that they can get online, as opposed to a print magazine. I've got young kids myself. I've got 2 in college, 1 in high school. My middle son will flip through a Sports Illustrated once in a while. And apart from that, I never see one of my kids pick up a paper magazine. I think that's unfortunate. I think that's kind of a sign of the times that we live in, but it is what it is. If you're going to reach, that younger crowd, you're going to have to do it in some way other than a paper and ink print media, I think. All right. Hey, I'm curious. Has the stream quality remained pretty good throughout? Because I've done some tests, and a lot of times by about 30 minutes, my stream starts to degrade. So I haven't heard anybody say that I've really had. Oh, here Jack is saying that he was buffering until he refreshed. Okay, so because I had said if it starts to fall apart, I would end it, but so far people are saying it's mostly been pretty good. So that's good news. Glad to hear that. Let me take just a few more comments here. I got a few minutes left here. ContainerMan68 Roy says, I'm actually a whole year behind in reading Model Railroader magazine. That's when I finally let my subscription lapse. And I'm not telling you what to do, Roy, but when I basically had 6 months of magazine that I hadn't even taken time to open, and then my next renewal came and it was sitting on top of them, I just decided maybe it's time just to take a break from it. Again, I still enjoy reading it. I'll probably still pick one up off the newsstand now and then, but more than anything else at this stage, because of what I'm doing, I have a full-time job and I'm doing this YouTube thing. I just don't have time to read it. Big Bill, South Brooklyn Railroad, welcome. Glad to see you here this evening. Big Bill says, I believe the print magazine is essential to the hobby, but with the digital age, it does require anyone to read anymore. Kids cannot take time on an analog watch. There's a lot of truth there. Can't take time to read an analog watch. So how are they going to read a magazine? Good to see you, Big Bill. Hey, I want to mention also while I'm here, I plan to mention this evening, so I'll mention it now. Tomorrow evening, Big Bill, I hope I'm not speaking out of turn, but I know this has been advertised, so I'm going to mention it. Tomorrow evening on YouTube Model Builders here on YouTube. Who is Big Bill talking to? The show is tomorrow evening, and guests tomorrow evening. I believe the plan is to be and Bob Olson of DeBob's In-Scale Man Cave. And I think we're going to be talking about the subject of making videos, which is a subject that I'm excited to talk about. I've actually thought about making some videos about making model railroad videos or making YouTube videos, but I wasn't really quite sure how those would be received on my channel. So I've kind of put that off. So I'm excited to talk about that tomorrow evening. Thanks for being here, Big Bill. Anything you want to add to that about tomorrow night's show? I'll be glad to share it. Oh, let's see here. There have been a few questions. Okay, thank you, Stephen, for helping keep me up. There have been a few questions about your contest and the winner announcement date. Okay, yes, that was also on my list to mention this evening. I think I had said in one of my little test live streams last week that I would have that winner announcement over the weekend. I got busy and that didn't happen. So the video announcing the winner for the 1,000 subscriber or the 10,000 subscriber contest will be tomorrow. So look for that video tomorrow. Be announcing the winner and giving that award, which is a $100 gift certificate to Midwest Model Railroad. And so you'll want to watch for that. It will be up tomorrow morning. Sorry, am I singing? I didn't mean to sing. Jack. Wow, did not know that. Didn't know about the contest. I think maybe it's what he's saying. Let's see. I was trying to keep up with what Big Bill said to see if he had anything to add about the show on YTMB. Yes. Okay. All right. Here's a comment I want to read from. Is it Masabi 118? I'm 12, and I used to read 2 Model Railroad magazines, but then the ceiling started leaking on my deals, and about $150 of my maps got destroyed. I'm sorry to hear that, Masabi, but I'm very excited to hear about somebody who's 12 and into model railroading. That is cool, and I hope you stay with it. It is a great hobby, and it can make a great lifelong hobby, and it's a hobby that not only includes so many different hobbies that it keeps you interested, but also as you go through life and as things change and your interests change, it's a hobby that can change along with your changing interests. Walker Valley Railroad. Ron, can you do a video tour of your railroad sometime? I actually have done a video tour of my railroad about a year ago. And if you go to my the video tab on my channel and search for a layout tour of the Texas, Colorado, and Western, you'll get a full tour of the layout. I'm about due to do an update sometime. I did one update in the fall. I've made some other changes since then, so I'm about due for another update. But that's a pretty good tour of the whole layout. Video tour of the Texas, Colorado, and Western. Check that out. Let's see here. Jeff Allen. These live chats and YouTube videos are so much more hands-on than the print. You know, Jeff, I have to agree with you, and I'm going to make a comment there, and I'm going to run out of time in just a minute, but I am a very visual kind of a person. When I got into the hobby, I was in my mid-20s, and this would have been in the mid-90s. And so, the internet was a brand new thing. There were model railroad videos out there available on CD, on DVD. But I was a young kid and had just gotten out of graduate school and I couldn't afford them. I started reading everything I get my hands on, but I would have really benefited from some great model railroad videos that were affordable or that I could easily get my hands on. And honestly, that's a big part of why I started this channel in the first place. I had 2 primary goals that kind of drove me to start my channel. One was the fact that I really wanted to help both build and be a part of the model railroad community, because I live in a small town and I'm a long way from any city or any model railroad club or even any other model railroaders that I know of. Um, I was looking for an opportunity to get involved in a community, and I couldn't do that physically locally. So I sought to do that through YouTube. But the other reason was the fact that I know that I really could have benefited from some video how-tos when I first started. And so I wanted to be able to give back some of what I have learned and am still learning about model railroading to other people who are visual learners and who maybe can't afford to go out and spend hundreds of dollars on DVDs. Hey, we've got this great invention called YouTube where we can just share it with one another. And so that was really part of the driving force behind Ron's Trains and Things in its beginning. It looks a lot different than I had necessarily planned for it to look, and that's been really driven by the kind of the desires and the viewing habits of the people who watch my videos. But that's cool, and it's turned out to be good. Big Bill, great stuff here, Ron. Looking forward to seeing you tomorrow night. Me too, Bill. I'm going to tell you, I'm really excited about tomorrow night's show. I'm excited about the topic, and so I'm really looking forward to that. So I hope you all tune in tomorrow evening. I believe that's at 8:00 Central. I think that's right, just like this one was. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong there. Jack, Ron, will you be at the Plano train show in November? No, I won't. Again, because I work full time, I get to do about one real train show a year. And this year, the National Model Railroad Association convention and train show is like right in my backyard in Kansas City, which is something else I was going to mention before I run out of time. That if any of you are coming to the NMRA convention or to the National Train Show in Kansas City, be sure and look for me. And if you see me, come introduce yourself. I look forward to meeting as many of you as I possibly can that are coming to be part of the show. I look forward to the show. I look forward to it being in Kansas City. I literally grew up about 30 or 40 minutes from where the show is going to be held in downtown Kansas City. So I'm further from Kansas City now than I was then, but it's always fun to go up there, and it's kind of like going home. So I'm excited about that, and I'm excited about meeting many of you. So if you're going to be at the NMRA at the convention or at the show, be sure and watch for me. Look me up, say hello. I know Roy CONTAINERMAN68. He's planning to be at the train show, I know, and probably some more of y'all. So be sure and look me up. Let's see. I hear you're going to be at the Midwest Model Railroad open house on Friday. People can enjoy a chat with you there. That's true. And Stephen, if you wanted to share any more about that open house, feel free to do it, and I'll be sure and read it on here. Eric says oversaturation on live stream will be. Oh, okay. All right. I've got just a couple minutes left. Let's see. Sparky 107 says you and Tom should get together and do a video or two. Sparky, Tom and I have actually talked about that. And if we ever hit on that just brilliant, idea, that's something that we both want to do. We just haven't come up with just the right subject or just the right video idea yet. So Sparky 107, another $5 super chat. Thank you so much. He says, what a great live stream. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Sparky. Appreciate you coming and being a part of it, and appreciate your super chat as well. Well, I'm going to start winding down here. We're down to the last couple of minutes. But I was thinking there was a couple of things that I wanted to recap here. First of all, I do want to remind you that my next scheduled live stream will be on Monday night, August 27th. Again, will be at 8:00 Central, and I look forward to that. I just want to say thank you to all of you who have come in and been part of the chat. Some of y'all have been here from the very beginning. That's awesome. I appreciate that. Hey, 30-day reviews. Good to see you. Glad that you're here this evening. What's my favorite thing about model railroading? my favorite thing about model railroading has always been being able to create a world in miniature and then make it move, and make it work. That's always been something that fascinated me, even when I was a kid and before I knew model railroading existed. So that's definitely my favorite part. Okay, so August 27th, that Monday night, will be our next live stream. Also want to remind you to go check out the Modeler's Journal. If you're not familiar with it, you can go to the website. Literally, it's themodelersjournal.com. Subscription is free. You can download the PDF. It's a good brand new magazine that you can check out. And I write a column for that magazine each quarter as it comes out. Be sure and join us tomorrow evening for the YouTube Model Builders. Who's Big Bill talking to? We're going to be talking about making videos, and I'm excited about that. Thank you again to Eric and Stephen for serving as moderators this evening. I appreciate that. And be sure and join me again next month for that next live stream. And until then, be sure and join me each Tuesday as I bring you more great model railroad videos. And I look forward to seeing you then.